we could talk obviously about your views on consciousness and so on and so forth, but let's actually go to the subject of this conference.
Let's do that.
And where you think we are
Yep.
at this point in discussing the subject matter of breaking the spell, religion as a natural phenomenon.
Yep.
You've been on the road for a year talking about these
Yes.
things. What's your sense of it? Do you have an optimism about this? Where do you think we should go?
Actually, I am optimistic about this, not just because that's my natural cast of mind anyway, but I see very heartening signs. What I think's been happening in recent years, when we've seen this apparent upsurge of religious fervor, is more a matter of religious groups around the world confronting for the first time the democratization of information. Just the flood of information from cell phones and the internet and television, and they've never had to deal with this. They could always isolate their children from this. They could always control what their children had contact with. They can't do that anymore. I mean, short of tying them up and holding them in the house and turning off the electricity and taking away the batteries, they just can't do it. And so they're rather desperately trying everything in sight to see what they can do to preserve what they think they should preserve. That in itself is perfectly rational. If you love something dearly, you take whatever steps you can think of to try to protect it from something you see as a threat. And I think what we have to do is appreciate that that's what's happening, and then think, what is the gentlest, kindest, firmest, least disruptive way of easing the pain of the democratization of information across the world? And rather than thinking about exterminating religion or anything like this, we should rather think about it, if you like, in both evolutionary and you might say in epidemiological terms. We should encourage the evolution of avirulent forms of these religions, turning them into less toxic varieties, encouraging the growth of the less toxic varieties of every religion, and letting the really dangerous forms go extinct. Now, how do you do that? You do that by gently setting up competition between facts and myths. And you do that by education. And you don't worry about the old folks. I think people are very rightly concerned that, oh, poor Granny and Grandpa, you don't want to disillusion them. You don't want to say to them, you've wasted your life on this. That's cruel. That's hard. Let them finish out their days with their illusions, as long as they're not in charge of armies or something like that. But let's just try to turn off the spigot and get their grandchildren and their children's children and their children just open their eyes to the wealth of factual information, not just about science, but about religions, including their own religion. I think that the toxic forms of religion only survive when there's enforced ignorance in the young. And if we can simply say, you have no right to keep your children ignorant of these facts. These are just facts. This isn't propaganda. These are truths. These are just as much truths as chemistry is truth and the arithmetic is truth. And just if we get those truths to children, first in this country and then around the world, then they can teach their children whatever else they want. And they're going to find it's going to be hard for them to teach their traditional doctrines. And so what will they do? They will revise, they will adjust, they will have to accommodate to convince their own children of these doctrines. And that's a healthy direction. I think, this is an empirical claim, I might be wrong, I think any religion that can thrive under conditions of open information deserves to thrive. And be just fine. and the rest should go extinct.